Hi, friends. Hello, happy Sunday. Happy book club day. Welcome to a live stream. This is a live stream for the Annotation Station, which is a monthly book club that I run. I'm going to give it a minute for people to kind of jump in before I get started in reviewing the book. I'm going to say hi to some friends who are here, and I'm going to talk to you about what books we are going to be reading next month in case you're interested in joining us. Hi, Roro. How are you? Good to see you. How are you doing today? Today's a busy day because I have two book club meetings. I have this book club meeting, and then I have reading sprints, and then I have the Interstellar book club meeting at 3 p.m. today. So it's a lot of streaming going on. Yay! So it's just me today, and we read in the month of April Everything is Tuberculosis, a history of one of the world's most deadly diseases by John Green. I listened to it on audio, so I do not have a physical copy of the book. So I'm going to be talking to you about it based on my notes that I took and what I remembered and anything that you all would like to talk about based on what we learned from this. I am a firm believer that nonfiction isn't spoilery and talking about it because for a lot of nonfiction, it's important that you go through the process of reading it to experience the formatting that the author wanted you to experience. So I will not be giving a spoilers preface during this review because it's nonfiction. We are here to share information. I would still recommend, even if you haven't read it and you learn stuff from this and you're interested, please go and read it anyway. Hey, Sky, how are you today? How are we doing? How do? Hello. Did you guys read this? Let me know if you did or if you're just here to learn stuff with me. Nonfiction is not spoilery. I said that. I feel like talking about nonfiction, even if I learn things that are pivotal points in the book, I don't feel like it's a spoiler because I feel like you have to go through nonfiction in order to experience the book. That's just how I feel about nonfiction. I say that because I'm not putting up a spoiler warning, but if you feel differently, by all means, please feel free to rationalize. But yeah, so before I get started in talking about on tuberculosis, I'm going to briefly talk to you about what the Annotation Station is reading next month in case you want to join. So the Annotation Station is a book club that anyone can join. The live streams are free. If you would like to join our Discord, please think about becoming a channel member, link below. We read 2 books every month, a fiction and a nonfiction. The fiction pick is going to be Futbolista, for May by Johnny Garcia. This is a really beautiful new adult queer Mexican romance. It's really beautiful. It's open door romance. If that's something you're interested, check that out. And then for the nonfiction pick, I'm going to share screen so that you can look at it and I can explain it because I don't have a copy I'm going to be listening to on audio. It is called Rehearsals for Living by Robin Maynard and Liana Bitasamosoke Simpson. Apologies if I'm not saying that correctly. Hal says, I haven't read it. I'm here once again for vibes and support. Love you to pieces. Sky says, I read it, cried, and had a family cry session. Oh, honey. My uncle in Yemen died of TB earlier this year. Oh, no, I'm so sorry. Didn't even know what kind of illness it was because of the shame culture. Yes, we are going to talk about the shame culture. That is a big thing that John Green touches on in this book. Very eye-opening. Yes. The resources section at the end is just thoughtful. I agree. This is an incredible read. Everyone needs to read this. This is one of those things that regardless of how you feel, it's important to read, even if you don't have a personal connection to TB, because it talks so much about the global stigmatism of disease and how disease is treated as a means of imploring power upon different groups of people. The way that medicine is rationalized as a power structure. So we're going to be talking about all of that. So really briefly, again, if you want to read this with us next month, this is a nonfiction between two authors. One is Black and the other one is Indigenous. And they basically are writing letters to each other about contemporary topics. A captivating book, part debate, part dialogue, part lively and detailed familiar correspondence between two razor-sharp writers convening on what it means to get free as the world spins into a new orbit. In a genre-defying exchange, the authors collectively envision the possibilities of more liberatory futures during a historic year of Indigenous land defense, prison strikes, and global Black love rebellions against policing. So I'm really looking forward to this. If you'd like to join us, again, everything you need is in the description below. Okay, so let's get started talking about this. If anyone has anything specific that they'd like to touch on first, please feel free to drop it in the comments at any time, and I will just be kind of going on my notes. Hi, Damien. Hello. Yay, you made it. So proud of you. You did it. Okay, so let me know what y'all rated this. I personally rated it a 5-star. And when it comes to rating nonfiction, I feel like it's a little hard to rate because it's like either if the book was very informative or even if it's something that I'm really familiar with, in this case, not. I learned a lot about this because I really didn't know as much about TV as I should have, but now I do. Or if it's a book that I feel like could be really informative for other people and I appreciate the way that it's structured as a learning tool, then I'm usually going to rate it high. It's very rare that I would rate a nonfiction like middle of the road because either you learn a lot or I feel like it has problems. That's just my personal experience with nonfiction. So if anybody else has any other experience, let me know. Rated it a 4-star because it felt like a starting point. Oh, that's really good observation. Okay. So personally, I don't know what else I would add to this conversation. So I did give it a 5-star because I feel like I learned a lot, but I can totally see this as well. Like I've given some things like a 4.5 because I feel like it's something that I could see a deeper conversation on. So I totally get that and appreciate that. Okay. Yeah. So one of the interesting things about this book is the title in it of itself of Everything is Tuberculosis is around this idea that tuberculosis is one of the most prominent illnesses in the history of mankind. And yet somehow with that lengthy history, it has the stigma behind it. It has been weaponized. I guess like what I really baffled me was that you would think with such a long history of being exposed to something that has had such an impact on our species that we would be more inclined to understand it and make it a foundational part of learning health in just education, point blank period. Because what was the statistic? Something like a quarter of the entire human race is infected. And then of that, it might have been another quarter of that are people who are actively contagious. But like either way, contagious or not, a quarter of the entire world is infected with tuberculosis. Why is this not common knowledge that is done? Like, be aware of this. Use this as a prominent example of take care and healthcare practices. I think that really is like a reflection on culture. And I think if we just look at the pandemic and the way that various, like the West versus East, or just the United States versus like other countries treated this outbreak, it really, like, I'm asking this question because I'm like, this is why is this not more seriously taken? And it's so dumb, but like stigma and denial is crazy. Sky, it might sound dumb, but I thought it was a sex-related disease just because my family acts around it, so I never looked at it. Okay, no, but you're not wrong, though. You're not wrong for I don't think you're dumb for feeling that way, because, like, the way that it was expressed to me when I was growing up, like I didn't think it was necessarily contracted that way, but I thought it was somewhere in the realm of like mono, where mono is considered stigmatized like a teenager's disease because young people are always like making out with each other and in high proximity of each other, sharing bodily fluids, and so it's considered like young people get that because they share saliva and they're not wise about their health choices, and so I thought it was like somewhere in that family, where growing up I can literally tell you I openly knew that maybe 2 or 3 people I had ever come in contact with in my life had TB. In my brain, it was an overseas problem because it wasn't something that was talked about here. It was like, and all the people that I knew were people who immigrated from other countries where I know it's more active. And this is all feeds into what John Green teaches us in this book, right? In my brain, I was like, oh, this is not something that's very common here. It's common in other countries. They weren't vaccinated for it, which is like all feeds into that as well, and that power dynamic. And those things are not necessarily not true. But I didn't realize growing up that was white supremacist rhetoric that was being fed to me, that it is not a here problem. And that blew my mind a little bit. Was I surprised in hearing that? No, but it was like I just never put any thought into it, So I don't think you're wrong, like, for feeling that way. We just weren't taught, and this is wild. So yeah, and also like as a educator, something that teachers here have to do is we have to get a TB test when we're getting our license, or like anytime we move to a new school, we have to get a TB test. So I've had multiple TB tests, but it was never rationalized to me as to why that is the one disease that they test us for. It was just a thing that they did. So that's wildly interesting. But yeah, so what we learn, right, from this is, oh yes, I'm so glad you're bringing this up because this is what I wanted to talk about. My mom went wild when he said TB and consumption was the same illness. Yes, the romanticization of consumption is abnormal in literature. This part, again, my brain was like, where do people get off? So consumption, I also thought was completely different. I thought these were 2 different diseases. And I never really looked into consumption either. But consumption in media was portrayed as this beautiful disease or desirable disease, I guess, similar to how people choose to have parasites because it's going to make them lose weight and get a skinnier waist. And they'll have flush skin and they'll have pink cheeks. And like, actually, there is a little bit that he talks about in here and how that like feeds into the beauty industry and like women's beauty standards, which is absolutely disgusting to me. Like, I cannot believe that so many of women's beauty standards is based off of the thought that having an illness is beautiful. That is disgusting to me, and I'm getting hot thinking about it. But like, no surprise there. So yeah, so consumption coming from this romanticization of people who have it are creative people, or people who have it are beautiful people because it makes their skin pale and lighter and flush. And it's like, how racist is that? It's so racist. It's not even funny. In Ukraine, we all get the BCG vaccine. We also get tested every year, but I've never met anyone with TB as far as I know. This book made me look up info about TB in Ukraine. Yes, it's so common. It's so common. Like, there is no way that any of us have gone through life, according to these statistics, that we have not come across individuals, potentially in our daily lives, if you work with the public, who have TB, right? It's just a matter of, is it in a contagious stage or not? But yeah, it really needs to be taken much more seriously. as far as the science goes of what I understand, he explained as to why it's so prominent. Oh, hey! Hello, hello. Happy Gummy Bear Day. Happy Devil Dog. Happy Tell a Story Day. Okay, I love it. That's great. Perfect day for Tell a Story Day because we're trying to share this information right now. Also, gummy bears. I do like gummy bears. Everything I'm privileged, I just zapped back to reality, having been born and lived in a first world country my whole life. Exactly. That's the part that shocked me. Is like, I feel like because of how much access we have to information, living, and you know what, actually, that idea of like first world country, second, third world country, I did some looking into that recently, not like this year, but like in the past few years. And also that terminology in itself has a whole history in white supremacy. So let's try to change that to just like technologically advanced or like technologically developed countries. Because it's not that other countries don't have technology, it's that we are like the hoarders of the wealth, you know? It's because the Cold War. Yeah. Just Google it. It's on the rise in UK after the lockdowns, up 10%. Oh, it's rough. Yeah, so there's I don't even know if I have the terminology to begin to explain like what I learned. That could be a whole other video in and of itself as to why that terminology was framed the way it was to like create this suppression of certain countries and this like false ideology that they're not developed. But and again to that, but yes, I understand what you're saying. It's about access to healthcare, access to wealth, access to resources and technology. What was I saying? So yeah, like in a country like the United States where we have so much abundance of everything, you would think we would be more informed. And what we choose to keep ourselves informed about is a direct correlation between our value systems, our moral systems, and our moral superiority here. That we, as a nation, have chosen to oppress ourselves through knowledge, through a lack of knowledge. But that, anyway, I'm going on a tangent. So the way that it scientifically works, from my understanding, is that tuberculosis has been prominent because it's such a slow mutating disease. It is such a slow reproductive disease. As a virus, I believe it's contagious. Viruses are contagious. That's how if I'm not sciencing this correctly, please someone tell me. Most things like common colds and flus and things of that nature the bacteria reproduce very frequently, and so like daily, hundreds of times daily. I don't even know. I'm not even gonna forget statistics because I can't remember numbers. But the point is, this is a much slower reproduction rate. And so because of that, white blood cells tend to create this calcification around the bacteria, excuse me. And then the bacteria is like locked inside this wall of white blood cells. And so as long as it is locked away, you can have it, but it won't be active unless somehow it breaks out of that or is, has escaped that, like whatever we're going to call it, jail. And it now is able to become rampant and mutate. And we follow throughout the story a boy named Henry who is from Sierra Leone, I think. If I'm mistaking that, someone correct me. I feel like it might have been Sierra Leone. And John Green met him when he was younger and still maintains a positive relationship with him today. His story is used to ground us throughout this entire book. Okay, yes, it was Sierra Leone. Okay, good, thank you. And I was so scared the entire time. I'm like, please, Henry, no. I can't. If he didn't make it at the end and become a success story, I was going to cry. I was going to cry. I was going to bawl. I was like, no, Henry. But like just in general, wanted to cry for everybody in this because it's so incredibly sad. Luckily, Henry was able to eventually get the care that he needed because he had some sort of mutated version of the disease in which common medicines or traditionally accessible treatments were not working. And then they took a risk and tried something a little bit more experimental, and it did work. And now he's leading a happy life and has a very close relationship with John Green, which is really beautiful. So I really liked that he had shared Henry's story with us, and then also gave us like the social media platforms and things that Henry posts on. So if we wanted to continue to follow his journey, we could. I thought that was super sweet, and how he uses his resources to educate people about tuberculosis and to like spread a message of hope. I was right, Henry, no matter how things ended. And I did. Yes, I was tearing up. Poor baby. Oh, baby boy. So, and his family, like what these families go through in watching their family members fall to consumption is just heartbreaking. Yeah, you have different level medication, and the World Health Organization can only help those countries get up to a certain level. Right, especially because, okay, here's the kicker, right? Here's the kicker. I'm just going to get into the thing that really, really pissed me off and like really got me going. I loved that John Green got into the racist policies, especially conducted by Western nations like the United States and the UK and other countries that hoard this wealth. How dare they? How dare they try to make the medicine a racial issue by using it to justify the oppression of Black and brown peoples? I mean, are we surprised? No, but I'm so happy that John Green spent enough time, at least spent some time in this talking about it, because there was a point in the beginning where he touched on it for a few sentences, and I was like, oh, I don't know if he's going to come back to this, but when he did, I was very happy about it, because the medication, the treatments have been around for like, is it 50 years or 60 years? I think he said it came out in like maybe like 60 years. I think it was in the 1960s that we finally got, that it became curable, right? And up until then, historically, a lot of research was put into finding a cure, because regardless of your wealth, regardless of your race, everyone was being affected by this. And as we learned through the pandemic, through COVID-19, we have the money and the means to find resources to battle major disease. We've seen it happen 5 years ago, where wealthy nations pulled all their resources and said, we need to find this. And the reason that they found that cure, or found ways of preventing this from spreading further and containing it in some form and fashion and treating it, is because it was affecting the wealthy and the white. And right after the 1960s, after it becomes like, again, I'm saying treatable and containable, in predominantly white nations, all of a sudden the research slows down and the policies around who gets treated shifts. And when I tell you that my rage, I wanted to punch somebody. I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean? I'm about to throw hands. Because as like recently as 2016, 2018, I don't know. Listen, I'm getting hot. I forgot what this white man's name was, this politician that sat here and said that Black people could not handle giving themselves the medication because they couldn't be trusted to use it properly. How dare? Yes. Humans suck. These people suck. They suck. How dare they? Because what John Green, I think, tries to explain, and what I understood, was that when the treatment was first being produced and like widely accessible, people could just show up. to a clinic, get their little treatment, maybe get like a to-go package, you know, you can go home and like take care of it yourself. But when white people, the wealthy, right, were like, oh, we're good, all of a sudden they create these policies that, because majoritively Black and brown peoples did not have access to healthcare, and now it was considered a them problem, that they were like, oh no, if you want the medicine, you got to come here. You got to come to our clinic. We are going to give it to us with us to supervise you because you can't be trusted. And that is an issue, especially, okay, I'm tying this back to a book that I read last year. Was it this year? No, this year, earlier this year, that is also really good. If you haven't read The Color of Law, definitely look into it. But there's a part of that book that I think relates to this here in the United States, which is that like road systems, towns, redlining, maps in the United States, the way that cities were structured is entirely based around a means of excluding Black people and Latinos and marginalized peoples from housing and access to resources. The way that redlining works is that there are specific areas that were deemed colored appropriate to buy. Did the legal jargon say color exactly? No, but it used financial means and requirements that only people who come from wealthy families would have access to be able to buy housing or have direct lines and transportation or buy cars or have assets that would allow them to get to healthcare facilities, schools, other things like that. Dessa put this on my list. Maybe it will give me some healing for my own disease. Also might help point out any racism. Yes. Highly recommend, Howell. Please pick it up. I know, Sky, my blood's ah! Oh my God. I'm sorry, I'm screaming. I'm like, so angry. Okay, so thinking about that, right? And relating it back to this book, it's exemplified in this book that how can you expect it to be reasonable for people who are being forced to live in areas where they are significantly impacted by a lack of access to healthcare? Healthcare is extremely expensive, intentionally so, because it's a mean of necropolitics, which if you haven't, you know what, maybe I should make necropolitics a book club read. It's a really hard read. It's big brain philosophy, energy. But if you don't know Achille Mbembe, he is an African philosopher, and he talks about how capitalism and westward expansion and colonialism are literally built to function off the ratification of Black and brown bodies. It relates to this, okay? But essentially through the necropolitical means of using that to stop people from getting healthcare and creating these situations in which people are impoverished and using what is happening to them to justify not giving them that healthcare. It's wild. And I want to take these books. I want to take this stack of books. And when I hear someone say systemic oppression doesn't exist, I want to just hit them with it. I want to be like, how dumb are you? Neither here nor there. Listen, if anybody's watching this and they're getting upset because of how angry I am, I need y'all to check in a mirror, okay? If you're upset because of how hot I am, check in a mirror. Point blank period. Don't come in my comments because I'm going to come for you. Cousin Sarkort research, it says common in young American Black women. So I'm guessing that could be the reason there's a lack of research. Yes. 100%. Listen, again, I'm on another tangent because I do a lot of time. My doom scrolling a lot of times has to do with looking into things like healthcare system and women's health, because doctors can't always be trusted to take women's health seriously, firsthand experience. But especially, listen, if you talk to a lot of Black women, they will tell you, unfortunately, their health is not taken seriously. And there is a long history of Black women's complaints not being taken seriously because of racist rhetoric saying that they can't feel pain, they don't experience pain the same as white women, all these other things. So yes, it is all related. Thank you, Scott. We're just rage together, okay? They're bringing the Jersey out of me. Okay, so listen, getting hot. Okay, where was I? So yeah, so because of that, there's different kinds of stigma. There's the racist stigma. There's also just like this stigma that he talks about of people who were famous literary icons dying of consumption. Was it the Bronte sisters? I feel like it might have been the Bronte sisters. If I'm mistaken, let me know. But a group of women writers who passed away from it. And also like in their writing, not their, I don't think it was their writing specifically. I think he quoted a male writer, but someone talking about how there's something romantic about the idea of leaving for this earth from consumption. And I'm like, bro, that's not okay. I think so part of the reason that it was called consumption was because your body is literally your body is always like literally consumed by disease, right? Yes, it was the Bronte sisters. Okay, cool. Right? Ew, like just ill behavior overall, red flags all around. But something that we learned through Henry, who is the boy who has tuberculosis in this, is his relationship with food. That scared me. Okay? The idea of being so hungry and that this disease, it makes you want to eat, and that a lot of these people didn't have access to food, that the healthcare system that Henry was in Sierra Leone, and a lot of actually healthcare systems even here, don't see food as medicine. What do you mean? You are literally made of food. You are, the things that you put in your mouth become the molecules that are produced in your body. I don't understand why that's such a basic thought. These people are not even basic. Like, I don't even know what you call that. That's another level of stupidity that I just couldn't understand. So how is nutrition not an important part of a treatment? It blew my mind. And that these people who are trying to recover from this illness need access to nutritious food, and more probably than the average person who is healing from like a cold or a flu because of the nature of consumption. And that it's not that a lot of these facilities barely have enough resources to give people 3 meals a day. I don't understand that. Like, somebody make it make sense for me, because I drink 2 cups of coffee every day. I am probably 20% coffee at this point. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean it doesn't matter? It's not something that we think about. That blew my mind. It's giving capitalism. Thank you, Howell. All of it is giving capitalism, and it's crazy. It's crazy. And that's not surprising. I mean, look at the society that we live in now. There are people who think that it is a waste of government funds to feed children, to feed our most vulnerable. How is it ever a waste of taxpayer dollars to feed hungry children? How can we sit here and say that it needs to be the parents' responsibility when we literally live under a necropolitical functioning government in which not everyone can have the same access to resources at the same time? Tell me how it makes sense. It doesn't. Food is so important. Food deserts are real. And unfortunately, a lot of the individuals that John Green spends time talking to in this live in significant food deserts. And it's just horrifying. Horrifying. So please, if you haven't read the book, or if I'll see if maybe I can like drop it in the description later on, but John gives a lot of resources at the end of the book. So that's really nice. Okay. What else is there to talk about? We talked about stigma. We talked about consumption. We talked about food. We talked about how it was romanticized. Don't feel guilty, Sky. It is not your fault. It is not your fault that we are like this. It's our fault that we are like this. It is. It really is. So please take advantage of the resources that you have and pay it forward is all. Try to do that here as much as we can. But yeah, so there were two phrases, I guess, words, and one's a word, another one's a phrase that I wanted to touch on that I found really interesting when he pointed them out in this. And it's not that it's something that I hadn't thought. Bleh. It's not that it's something that I hadn't thought about before, but it's more of like the phrasing is very important. One of them being human manufactured problems. And like, I feel like that's a really good way of phrasing a lot of the problems that we're talking about, right? Is like all of these things, like racism is a human construct. Race is a human construct. These are human manufactured problems. And as if living life and dealing with disease isn't hard enough as is, we have to throw in human manufactured problems. And I feel like I really like the way that he phrased that, because I could see that being something that could be used in an argument or a debate with someone who doubts that these are problems or doubts the existence of these things, of these structures and these concepts that have real impact on people's lives. Yeah, it may not be something tangible, but it has real tangible impact. So I feel like I just wanted to note that, like, that's an interesting phrasing for me. And then he talked about invalid and the creation of the word invalid to be used on people who are disabled. Literally, if you break it up, becomes invalid. Which for some reason that never clicked for me. It's probably my ADHD. But like when he broke it up like that, I'm like, oh, that's so messed up. Yes. Hate that. Hate it. Like I knew that it didn't have a good history, like the R word, which I'm not going to repeat, but the R word that is also used to put down people who have mental disabilities. But when he phrased it, I'm like, yeah, that checks out. That checks out. It's the invalidation of people who have disability, who have illness, who are not the perfect specimen of a human being that capitalism prefers. So that's not surprising. But yeah, and so like the way British use that word makes it sound like a slur. Yeah, it's used as it's here. My experience with it is both it's used as a slur and it's used as like an actual term to describe services. So like I've seen like buses that are like invalid buses. So buses for people who are not able to take public transportation that don't have disability access. But like I don't think that makes it any better. I think that's also so like we need to change that. Talk about this one in my language. We literally called a disabled person a person with invalidity. That is horrible. That's horrible. We need to change that. We really do. That is sad. So hopefully that changes. I haven't seen that word be used on disability resource points maybe in like the last 5 years or so, but up until recently, it was very prominently used. I know I've seen it a million times in my life. So, but yeah. Okay, so speaking of facilities, something that I have seen, actually, I was born in one of these, which was really interesting, was the hospitals and the architecture of the structures in which people who had tuberculosis were brought in order to recoup, because tuberculosis causes a lot of issues with breathing. And so they figured putting people in the sun and giving them access to fresh air would help heal. So a lot of hospitals in like the late 1800s to early 1900s or mid 1900s, or in the United States, and I guess in the UK, I don't know, but were tuberculosis hospitals were built with a certain kind of roof. Okay, I'm gonna draw it because I don't know how to explain it. So it's like, it looks like a staircase. So this is the building, and like this is where the sun spends, like rises, right? It would be like, and then this would be what do you call it? Like this would be like a courtyard up here. So there would be like things here and benches where people could sit to get sunlight. I was at the hospital where I was born actually has that. I mean, they're all turned into condos now, but like those are actually very common in the state where I grew up. And I never really knew that that's what that was for. Because now they're just used as like luxury condos. But so that tuberculosis having an impact on architecture is very interesting. I wonder, hold on, he didn't say this, but I wonder if there is a correlation between tuberculosis and balconies. Because it is a very common thing here for like flats, condos, apartments, whatever you would call it, to have balconies. So that's a thing. I wonder if there's a correlation there. But yeah, how if you find any information on tuberculosis and balconies, let me know. But yeah, definitely look it up. It's very interesting. And they stopped building structures like that. I think I read somewhere it was like in the 1970s, 60s, 70s, around the time of when tuberculosis we found a cure for tuberculosis, is when they stopped building architecture like that. And also what John Green talks about is like a westward expansion. What he said was comparative to like the gold rush going out to California in the United States, of people going out there for fresh air. And it was called like a cure for the lungs. Hey, Hermie. Oh, thank you for being here, though. Thank you for the support. Sending love. I'll put it in the chat because you probably have me on mute. Let me see. Yeah, so people going out west to California to get fresh air. And it was like an escape from tuberculosis, or like a cure for tuberculosis, whatever. It's not actually a cure, but people were using tuberculosis as a means of getting people to move out west. Found a hospital that looks very colonial. I mean, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. Yeah, we're a relatively young country, so it's not. The cowboy hat thing was funny. Wait, I don't remember this. Did I probably forgot about this. I listened to it on audio. So if you can drop the cowboy hat thing in the chat to trigger my memory, that'd be great. But I don't remember. I said something about cowboy hats, and I don't remember what it was. Oh my gosh, yes. What did he say? Oh, I forgot. Whole New Mexico having to be white to join. Oh my God, what did he say? I forgot. I was right about balconies. Yeah, brain, let's go. Okay, that's wild. Everything really is tuberculosis. That's crazy. That's crazy to me. Okay. I'm gonna shoot him a message like, John Green, can you give us more information about this? I know I do remember him saying something about New Mexico, but I don't remember exactly what it was, guys. So if you could drop it in the chat, please help me out. Cowboy hats were designed by a guy from the East with consumption. Yes. Okay, I do remember that. I do remember that. Hal's gonna send me a pic. Okay, great. Thank you. We could share it here in the. Let's see. But yeah, so that was wild to me. Let's see. Are there any other points that I wanted to get to? Let me see. I'm opening up Howl's chat, by the way. If I can, is it letting me? I don't know if it's here. Oh, got it. Here we go. It looks like this. Oh, that's wild. Okay, so those are all just like that's a row of balconies. Okay, got it. That's interesting. Hey, how are you? Hello, hello. Oh, here we go. New Mexico could only join the U.S. states thing after having at least 10% white people. That, yes. Oh my God, I can't believe I forgot about this. After having at least 10% white people living in it, so they promoted it being a great place to get healthy from consumption. Right, because New Mexico was very much an indigenous territory. Yes, even the formation of states being added as official states had to do with racism and consumption. I mean, the same thing is happening with Puerto Rico. So my island has been colonized and is been a U.S. territory for 100 years now, and it's gotten to the point where there's so many white people and influential white people at that buying up property, and indigenous people like my people not being able to afford housing there, that they're moving to the mainland. And now the United States is like, maybe we should make it a state. Bitches. Tried. Oh, you make good food. Well, I'm happy for you. We talked about how nutrition is important a little while ago. But yeah, okay. So yeah, that's not that. Oh, my blood's boiling again. That's not surprising at all. So everything is related to race, and apparently everything is related to tuberculosis. So yeah, I think those are all the things that really stuck out to me that I can remember. So I think I'm going to start to wrap it up here. Also, I have reading sprints in 10 minutes. Sent a UK hospital that the balconies look like cages. Caged. Oh, it looks like a jail. Can you guys see that? It looks like a jail. It's creepy. Oh no. Cage. Yeah, if you haven't read this, if you haven't read the book that we're talking about, Everything is Tuberculosis by John Green, please check it out because it was very insightful. He did also narrate the audiobook himself. So, and you can also, there's also YouTube videos where he shares a lot of the information. So if you can get the audiobook, just YouTube it. And he has a lot of free resources online where you can get the information. So, but yeah. Okay, y'all, I think that's going to be it for this because I have to go get ready for reading sprints. We're going to do reading sprints today. It's only going to be 3 hours to sprint today because I have another book club meeting for the Interstellar Sci-Fi Book Club at 3 o'clock. So going to go get ready for reading sprints. Feel free to jump onto that link if you want to hang out with me and Natalie for a bit. But yeah, and also don't forget, if you want to join the Annotation Station and you want to get access to Discord, consider becoming a channel member. Like this video, leave a comment, whatever. It all helps me in the algorithm. But thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you to those of you who read it with me. Love talking to y'all. Yeah, why I know some cool facts about. Yeah, we learned a lot of cool things about buildings. We talked about buildings and architecture. Like the way it connected to everything was really interesting. So, but yeah, okay, y'all. Have a great day, and I'll see some of you in a little bit. Bye. See ya. Doo-doo.